Greetings, math fans. All right, so today's lesson is something called solving equations. Okay, so it's solving equations. So everything we've done so far, you saw the words the factor. Okay, so just be careful because you got to look for the word solving versus the word factoring. Okay, it's really, really important. Okay, so solving, let's just kind of start out with a really basic problem. Let's say you did factor the problem, because you have to factor first. Okay, that's actually part of the deal. Got to factor first. So let's just say you got 3, or x minus 3 times 2x plus 1. Let's say you factored it and you got that. Well, here's the deal. The only thing you're going to see extra is you're going to see it equal to 0. Okay, that's the only extra thing you're going to see. Or you're going to see, really, when I say equal to 0, you're going to see an equal to sign. Okay? That's important. So what I'm going to do is, I want you to understand that if this was equal to 0, just that what I just boxed here, if that was equal to 0, and I multiplied it by the second term, what would it equal? 0, right? So if this first term is 0, and I multiply it by anything, could be anything, 0 times anything is 0. Same thing if I told you instead, I said, hey, this was equal to 0. Wouldn't you tell me, well, it doesn't matter what this is, this could be anything, right? If I multiply, if this one's 0, the whole thing goes to 0. Okay? So the deal is, what you're basically setting these equal to 0 and solving. So let me kind of get rid of this stuff around here. All right. So I'm basically going to set each of these equal to 0. X minus 3 equals 0, and 2x plus 1 equal to 0. Add 3, so x equals 3. And subtract 1, so 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2, x is negative 1/2. There you go. Those are your two answers for this problem, guys. X equals 3 and x equals negative 1/2. It's that simple. Okay? Before we actually get into just a little more complicated problem, I want you to understand that, let's just do another quick problem here. If I have, for example, 2x times x plus 3 times x minus 5. All right. If I've got to set, wherever I see a variable, I'm going to set equal to 0. So that's equal to 0, that's equal to 0, and that is equal to 0. By the way, I need an equal to 0 here. That would be important. Okay. So you're going to say, well, 2x equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. So I solve each one of these. So this one's going to divide by 2, so x equals 0 divided by 2 is 0, which makes sense because 2 times 0 is 0, and then the whole thing goes to 0, right? Okay. This next one is going to be subtract 3 from both sides, so x equals negative 3. And this one's add 5 to both sides, so x equals 5. Okay, there you go. You got 3 answers. Okay? So if instead, see how I have a 2x here? If instead the problem looked like this is important. If it was this. So there's no x there. All right? And that equals 0. The deal is, you're not going to set this equal to 0, guys. It doesn't even make sense, because you would write 2 equals 0. Well, no, it doesn't equal 0. Okay? So if there has to be a variable next to it, if there's not a variable next to it, you can't set it equal to 0. It doesn't make sense to set it equal to 0. Okay? So in this case, you would literally just have 2 answers. You would have x plus 3 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. And you, just like we did over here, you'd get x equals negative 3 and x equals 5. Okay, after you solve. So you have to have a variable next to it to set it equal to 0. If there's no variable, don't set it equal to 0. Okay? It's important. Very important. Okay, so let's kind of make it a little bit more of a complicated problem. And I'm going to do one problem with you, and then I'm actually going to give you guys some steps. Okay. All right. So here's a problem for you. X squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, so you're literally going to factor that, and if I do a factor box, so we're going to get x squared, negative 6, and negative 5x. So you're going to have x and x. This is going to be negative 6 and positive 1. So this gives you negative 6x plus 1x is negative 5x, so that's good. And so your factor is x minus 6, x plus 1. So x minus 6, x plus 1, and that equals 0. So now just like we did before, guys, we said each of these equal to 0. So x minus 6 equals 0, and x plus 1 equals 0. So add 6 to both sides, x equals 6. There's one answer. Subtract 1 from both sides, x equals negative 1. That's the second answer. Okay? And you're done with the problem. What? So it's really easy. You're just setting those equal to 0 and solving. Okay? That's all you do. So you got to factor and set equal to 0. Okay. So let me give you some steps here, guys, because I think it's important to have some steps with all these problems. All right? So steps. The first step you have to do is you need to find, well, you got to recognize, I'm not even put that step down there. You got to recognize there's an equal to sign. So this is steps when you have an equal to sign. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is it needs to be equal to 0. So move terms so problem equals 0. That's important. You got to move the terms around so the problem equals 0. And you're going to do that by adding and subtracting. Okay? That's the first step. The second step is you're going to find and factor your GCF. So you're always going to look for GCF. The third step is you're going to do, I'm going to say factor, and it's a factor box, or it could be difference of two squares. Really one of those two. Okay? And then the fourth step is set each term equal to 0 and solve. Okay, those are your 4 steps. If you follow those 4 steps, you're gonna be good to go. If you don't follow those 4 steps, then you're gonna cry and you're gonna go through a lot of Kleenex, and it's just gonna be bad. Okay. All right. So let's do a problem here that's got kind of all this stuff in here. Right, so let's see. Well, let's see. I'll do it with everything in it here. So I'll do 2x cubed plus 6x squared equals 8x. Okay, that is the most complicated problem really you can get. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is it's got to be equal to 0. So in order to get that equal to 0, I'm going to subtract 8x from both sides. So I get 2x cubed plus 6x squared minus 8x equals 0. That's the first step. Got to get it equal to 0. Second step is find greatest common factor, which happens to be 2x. So 2x, and then left over is x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Okay? And the next step is factor box. So for the x squared, the negative 4 and the 3x. So it's x and x, 4 and negative 1, I believe, because that gives us 4x and negative x. So that's good. So here it is, x minus 4, or sorry, x plus 4, x minus 1. So it's 2x, x minus 1, x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, that's third step. Fourth step, set each of those equal to 0. So I got 2x equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. This first one divide by 2, x equals 0. Next one add 1 to both sides, x equals 1. Next one subtract 4 from both sides, x equals negative 4. And those are your three answers. Okay, it's not bad, right? Pretty reasonable. Okay, let's try another one here. Again, we're going to follow all the same rules as we've been doing here so far. Okay, let's do 3x squared plus 6x minus 40, or sorry, equals 45. Let's make it a little more complicated. Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to do, remember, you got to move the 45 over. So I'm going to subtract 45 from both sides. So you get 3x squared plus 6x minus 45 equals 0. Good. So it's equal to 0. Now I do greatest common factor, which in this case here is just 3. So you get 3 parentheses x squared plus 2x minus 45 over 3 is 15. Okay, and that's equal to 0. Now I'm going to factor that with a factor box. So x squared, negative 15, 2x. So x, and that's going to be 5 and negative 3. So x plus 5, x minus 3. So it factors to 3, x plus 5, x minus 3. So you guys should recognize that, that I can factor it, or it's already factored. Then you should recognize that I just basically set it equal to 0. But this is key. This has no variable. So please do not set 3 equal to 0. It wouldn't even make sense. You'd say 3 equals 0, and I'd be like, not the last time I checked. 3 is not equal to 0. Okay? So literally the only thing you're going to do is you're going to set x plus 5 equal to 0 and x minus 3 equal to 0. Two answers. So subtract 5 from both sides, x equals negative 5. And add 3 to both sides, so x equals 3. So there you go. Got two answers for that problem. Just x equals negative 5 and x equals 3. Okay? Okay, let's try another one here. Let's do 5x squared. No, we'll do 5x cubed. 5x cubed is equal to 20x. There you go. Perfect. Perfect problem. Okay, so again, the wording is going to say solve. You'll know what to do. If it says factor, then we won't even see an equal to sign there. Okay, and you're just factoring. Okay, so it says solve. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 20x from both sides. So you get 5x cubed minus 20x equals 0. Okay, next thing is greatest common factor, which is 5x. So you get 5x times x squared minus 4. And you guys should recognize x squared minus 4 is a difference of two squares. The square root of x squared is x, square root of 4 is 2. So it looks like 5x, and then in parentheses, it's x plus 2, x minus 2. Okay? And that equals 0, of course. So you get 5x equals 0. Now I've got an x, so definitely you have an extra answer there. And if you notice, math fans, every time I have just a number here, or just a term like this, 5x, something is going to be equal to 0. X is going to be equal to 0. That's actually important. Okay? So just to kind of recognize that when you're doing some of these problems. All right, x plus 2 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. So divide by 5, x is 0, subtract 2, x equals negative 2, and add 2, x equals 2. Okay, so that's it. You got there, there, and there for your answers. Okay, so that's kind of it, math fans. I'm pretty much not going to give you a prime problem. If you can factor greatest common factor, the problem's probably not going to be prime. That would just be kind of evil for me to do for solving. Okay, so basically, like I said, just follow those 4 steps that I gave you guys, and you guys should be golden for doing all these different types of problems. All right. Well, that's it, math fans. You have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.